Yeah, so I'm going to make sure I can see my notes. So everyone can see my first screen. Yeah, that should say Juliette Farrell, Hospitality Manager, Commerce at St. Martin, the Bullring. Everyone can see it okay? Perfect. Well, first of all, welcome to St. Martin. So um, you, you're actually sitting with me in the sacristy, but you can actually see our Burne-Jones window, which I took a photo of, which is to this side, a very famous window, but it's exactly the point. We've got so many artifacts that need maintenance. But starting with my presentation, so this workshop will use the history of commercial activities at St Martin's in the Bullring and how it's changed over the years to explore how commerce can be used as mission as well as support a church's sustainability. And firstly, an overview about you already know about Heart Edge and the four C's of commerce within the church, but I'll just do a quick overview, really importantly, as to how I've had to balance the four C's with the commercial four C's, which anybody from a background of commerce probably has had hammered into their psyche and ethos. And Jules, I know you'll feel this very much. So obviously, within Heart Edge, we're talking about developing the commerce, the culture, and congregation and compassion. Those are fundamental ethos, really just building stones and pivotal to the way we expect the church to sort of balance balance the books. So, just talking here really about commerce and how we balance things out. Um, for us and generating finance via enterprise and creatively extending our mission, we have to think outside the box. And what we don't want to do is just be a space that we rent out because we could just be a rentable space in a commercial in a city where some of our competing venues are like £4,000, so we could easily get the business in and just rent out our temple, the church part. But unfortunately, for those people looking for a cheap venue, we aren't always going to be that venue because we first and foremost are an iconic city centre mission-led church. So my place is very firmly set by the vicar who says we don't have targets, which is always a bit scary. But that's his standpoint. We have the ambition to bring in enough money to look after this place and hand over the building to the next people, the next keepers. So the picture here is of a group called Road Peace. They first came about 4 years ago, and they've since become part of the furniture. They hold all of their young offender sessions here, where they try and connect with youngsters in the community that perhaps have been speeding. They may have caused damage to a person or a vehicle or a building. But again, that is a very strong connection that we have built. Commerce led as well because we do get good income from them, but mission because we're changing lives here. The very appearance of them being on site is very, very important to us now. And the church helped nominate them for a King's Award, which they won, which is an amazing thing. So they've grown exponentially year on year, mainly due to one lady called Lucy. She's been amazing, but the relationship is what's helped. So moving on to my next slide. So culture, really, the culture here. When I first joined, there was a lot more paid staff in that. There was a lady called Cheryl who who did things like music things. We did a lot in the community with clay and paint, and but it was her job, and it was actually very much invested in. But as everybody knows, balancing, the outgoings of staff and these incoming culture things. We didn't have her, but we've still managed to balance, and we do have wonderful relationships with the conservatoire, who hold their students have to prove they can run let's say an event or a show in the classical realm as part of their thesis, and they do take over the space at no cost on a Friday. Not every Friday, mind you, but again, that's our culture then. So congregation, my job here, I am a congregation member. I tend not to get involved in much others than the going to church on Sunday, which everything else financially, as you said, the common fund, that is a completely separate sector to me, luckily. I don't think I'm balanced to do that and my job. But our common life is very lots of different breakout things, lots of prayer groups, walks. We've got ladies groups. We have got just pretty much everything that you'd expect in a church. So moving on, and our ethos for compassion. So for us, the sort of balancing the compassion and empowering congregations to address social need. That is very much us. Our volunteers open the church most of our open times with help from clergy also, that we can welcome in a very troubled community at times. It's has been a hotspot for suicides, unfortunately. So we're almost at the front line of some very serious goings on, and so it's important. We have a counselling centre upstairs, which is called the Centre for Health and Healing. So we gather an annual rent from them, but they are very much secular healing that you would get from a doctor's. So like cognitive behavioural, that type of thing. So moving on. So for us, and for me, when I first came in, balancing the ethos of a church with my hammered in experience of the secular forces, which is the customer centric, the costs, the convenience, the rapid communication. You'll probably know it. Pick up the phone in 3 rings, pick up the phone and think, well, we know we're in a church now. So balancing the two wasn't always easy. In fact, the gentleman in the picture who says the customer is always right is the gentleman who set up the Selfridges chain, which to the right of St. Martin's is the big silver building. And this is the chap that said the customer is always right. The thing is with that, it obviously is pivotal to really the way that we treat the customer in the secular world. And we have to balance that, because obviously we can't just throw the book out and say that doesn't exist, but we have to balance it. So just looking at the opposing forces, so the customer focuses on deeply understanding customers' desires, the needs, going beyond just demographics to identify their true motivation. So with the customers, we can have any customer come through. It could be martial arts, for example. Somebody whose club around the corner has decided that they all of their power's gone. They desperately need and to use a venue, and ours would be perfect. And I have to say, so sorry, that's actually not the case. That's not what we do here. And so we have to balance that out. And for me, as a congregation member, not clergy, my go-to, my get out of jail card is always, I'm going to ask for clergy permission. It's brilliant. It stops any ill feeling, because then I never get it wrong, because the vicar knows all the law, all the legals, any kind of sensitivities that I might not know from a denominational change. For example, we have had the Chinese Methodists do concerts here. We've had all different denominations come and do concerts here, but because of where we are, we get a lot of people say, well, could we not have your church on a Saturday and we'll give you X amount of money? We don't need necessarily the church, but could we have a downstairs room? So we have to balance that out then and have to ask a multitude of questions. Is this a one-off meeting? Is it a prayer group? Is it going to contradict our terms and conditions? So, yeah, basically, customer is not always right, unfortunately. But we have to make them seem like they are, which is a striking balance. So cost, and as you did mention, Dominic, exactly that. Heart Edge, about the church developing 4 Cs. One of our Cs for the building is the cost and the complete cost on the whole picture. So the customer is not just the price, but the time it takes to set that up, vision of what they're expecting of us. One of them might be the pews, which has actually been very difficult for us. We have very few staff and a lot of pews. So the time and the effort to kind of make the vision reality, and that's an important balancing act. We don't have many staff. We do have a lot of volunteers for the church aspect, but to date we have probably a handful of people we could ask for maybe ushering but we wouldn't necessarily ask them to lift stuff because then borderline problems with insurance and all sorts. So it is a balance, and my volunteers are often slightly different from the vicar's volunteers. It might be a different, and there is crossover though. So convenience. So this is about prioritizing making it easy for the customers to access and purchase the products, online availability and streamlined shopping experiences. Well, we did consider, could we perhaps use third parties to book rooms for us? We also considered, could they book online? Because there's some elements of online, booking where somebody could, but what I'd said is it'd be too easy to get it drastically wrong. It has to come through me and it has to come through a vicar for the church. So so again, communication we are very straight with people, building relationships through various channels and listening to the feedback. We do have to explain why political groups can't use the space. And so we just like to communicate well with any potential customers and any potential customers that we have to say no to. We do still build relationships, and we listen to also feedback. We have feedback sheets so that anybody that's rented from us can say, we don't like something. And sometimes that's happened. We've had a full repaint of downstairs because we had a company said we can't have a meeting in here, the room's too orange or too yellow. So we have now gone, kind of white and I can't remember the other colour, slight greys. So we've set down the colour spectrum based on feedback. So the customer, we do listen. So this is the biggest question really, was that the conflicting stakeholders between the church and secular world. What happens when our stakeholders kind of conflict with the church state? So secular and church can conflict. So I came to the conclusion that are they and the church mission, in fact, the most important equation above the customer-centric approach? Has to be church mission, has to be. And how do we balance mission and compassion with profit and perceived targets? Now, I say perceived because Reverend Jeremy will slap my wrist because he does not give me targets. So I just wanted to say that my perceived targets are based on a knowledge of what the church needs to remunerate, so I have an idea of that, but also how much money do I need to cover my costs, my tea, my coffee, my biscuits. So the church stakeholders are very much just an overview. You probably know this, but I'll just run through it. So the church stakeholders, so anybody that has such an investment in the day to day, is church, congregation, congregant families, community, staff families, volunteers, volunteer families, and ministries. So flipping over the page then to business stakeholders, there are a few, similar things that pop up, but business stakeholders are usually investors, government, customers, community, employees, employee families, and partners. So the balance, I believe, and has worked for me in trying to do my job as a Christian, is the balance between mission and commerce is so the way to a healthy church, healthy revenue making, and the balance between giving and taking, mission and commission, markup and that, making sure that we're being fair. And for me, I believe that the nucleus of this is that God loves a cheerful giver, and we have a building that we can bless people with. So sometimes we have to really think about how do we balance it? So how do we balance the church commerce with the stakeholders of the church? So the main thing, and this comes down to what Jules said, we are to be wise stewards, making sure that we've looked after this building for the next generation. We can't just get enough rental in to pay everybody really well, have an easy life, and then the Burne Jones window falls out. We can't do that. We have to balance it all, and it is a balance. So it's easy to see really that the church stakeholders are naturally not going to be the same as business sector. And just coming back to a bit of scripture, because I like a bit of scripture, Romans 12:11-16 in the New Living Translation, because that's my favourite Bible. Never be lazy, but work hard and serve the Lord enthusiastically. Rejoice in our confident hope. Be patient in trouble and keep on praying. When God's people are in need, be ready to help them. Always be eager to practice hospitality. So we know what that means. We just know that we have an ethos that has to really fit in with everything that we do. So with that saying, without wardens, without our volunteers, many of these events for us wouldn't go ahead. Obviously, the wardens, we don't ask them to lift the furniture, but maybe unless they offer, but we do rely on them, and they're absolutely part of our stakeholders. Without them, we wouldn't have events. So moving on to kind of the next stage, which is the way the room hire then should become, when commerce, culture and compassion and congregational life work together, they will enrich the mission of the church. And we think we've got it nailed. We think we've got it right. So the room hire will become part of the way that the church meets the community. So after lockdown, we actually had, before lockdown, we had a lot of big commercial customers. I'll name a few. I wouldn't usually, but we're all in this game together. So people like TK Maxx and Dune Shoes are on our doorstep, and often they would need somewhere to come to. We had training organisations that pretty much locked down one of our training rooms on an ongoing basis before COVID. But something strange happened in COVID, because the church itself then, it had to reboot. We rebooted, all of us rebooted. And for us, it gave charities a bit of a way in to kind of monopolize some of the spaces and use it. So we have people like prison advisory services hearing loss charities, mental health charities have really started to form our core um, clients, really, which has been lovely because now we're really meeting the community in a way that works in a mission way also. So room hire, the charities access now a central location. We have children's clubs, support groups, local choirs, art exhibitions. All these things bring people through the door. But we have to really understand also that other lives that come through, the homeless, the desperate, and the lonely, they all still come through. And we are still looking after congregation. They are also in trouble sometimes and need that sort of ethos of compassion. So moving on. So just to kind of summarize on what has worked and what hasn't worked for St Martin in the Bullring. So we have had bookstores, cafes, and we even started off with a top level restaurant. But the way that the land has evolved surrounding us, really, it's changed so much over time, and it didn't really last. It wasn't really our demographic. I think, as Jules, you said, you wanted things to be affordable, and I think at that point it just didn't function. So the demographic was off kilter. The regular visitors didn't really buy into it, and we kind of failed in attempting to appeal to a broader community rather than serving the church community first. So it just didn't work. And in my day, so I joined on the back of the tea lounge, the bookshop closing. My desk became that desk, where the shop was. And then when COVID struck, the tea lounge shut down, our tea lounge shut down, and we had not been profitable. In all the years I'd been here, we'd never been profitable, sadly. But we were a commercial enterprise. We paid 2 members of staff, and it was just we never broke a profit. In fact, I think we broke a loss. Coming back to what Dominica said, we were breaking losses. So it when it converted into a rentable space, the first £500 booking, we were in profit. And also something else happened was then that community space then became a space for the church again. It could be used as our welcome, cuppa and chat, for our own mini Martins, now our youth, our children's groups. So just to summarize what I've just said, I probably went ahead. Although that it was really loved, it was a loss maker, and losing the bookstore and the tea lounge, it created a lot of backlash. Everybody was upset to lose it, but in real terms, and still to this day, you'll get people come in and say, "Is your tea lounge still open?" I didn't realise it'd be shut. It was shut, and that was 4 years ago. So fortunately, it was loved, but not often used enough, sadly. I know it can be different in smaller communities where that's the heart. It can work really well for smaller communities where that's the pivotal one place, no costas, no. It works really well, I know. So this is really just as I discussed earlier, so I can brief over this because I don't want to drain it too much. But some of the high street brands that used to use us quietened down. We now have practicing choirs. We've now got a new choir going to rent from us on a Wednesday night. So we've got 2 resident choirs, plus a third choir that couldn't practice with us anymore because our bell ringers came in, but they now are completely invested in us, and they do their Christmas event here and raise £800 for Cup and Chat. So we haven't lost anybody. They've moved around. So 3 years, well, since 2022, we've reinvented, a lot of our spaces, and we do rent out the lounge as part of the ministry. So just to reiterate, the loss of the tea lounge grew commercial growth. It's one of my best selling areas. It's been used by the council to do their when you have to do your planning permission meetings, the markets to have the staff meetings. It's used by many planning meetings, lots of charity AGMs as well has used us. So certainly is working for us. So just wanted to talk about the sort of challenge. You don't have to do this now unless you wanted to, but this was an exercise that I did on the day for Heart Edge. But these are the sort of things that happen, and it causes us a bit of a headache. So a typical commercial challenge might be a request for a full building hire comes in, but there is already a meeting for a visually impaired group for 2 hours blocking the diary. So that might be like it could be even £3,000 booking across the whole building, and we might have £100 in there. So I just wanted to throw that out there to make people think about what we have to think about. Another one, a support group wants to meet for half an hour on a Wednesday night. We don't open Wednesday night. Again, another problem. Someone else wants to use our building every Friday to feed the homeless. We get that a lot here. We go, we've got a really good idea. We want to feed the homeless on a Friday. And you go, oh, thanks, wonderful. So we get that very frequently. And it's the heart of people is wonderful. And this something we need to juggle. And last but not least, this is another one we get. A young group want to come in and film their music video. That's a lot, happens a lot. So my next slide, I think it's blank, just to say, what might you do for each of these? So I didn't know whether anybody wanted to say anything for any of these now to break up my chatting, or would you like to do? Or should we do that at the end? Do you want to nod if you want to do it at the end? Should we do it at the end? We can do it at the end, yeah. So we'll do it at the end. So we can discuss those and talk about those. I'll bring that slide back. So discuss what you might do for all of these. So I don't know whether you want to. I will tell you my solutions, and you can shoot me down at the end if you want. But my real solutions may be so asking the event organizer if they can involve the group, but I would never, as an absolute matter of principle, not displace my little meeting, because I think if we fall over in little things, we will fold in bigger things. So my integrity has to be to the existing meeting, say, we've got a really big event on. First of all, to the meeting, are you happy that it might be quite involved in the building, but also to the bigger, to the potential hirer of the whole building, say we have got a really important group to us. So in relation to charities, we would, we always say, understand that we're a charity also. We try and accommodate people on another day without losing room hire to people that want to do something and perhaps don't have enough money to pay a big rental. We try and help them. In relation to the homeless thing, we invite them to join our existing mission of feeding the homeless. It really does work, and it has helped us a lot. One, to get good volunteers, but also to not fatigue our already existing staff. Our building is open pretty much whenever it needs to be open, and that's just what we do really to get money in. And I'll answer questions on that afterwards if anyone wants to ask the type of business that we would say yes to. In real terms, it might be 4 o'clock in the morning opening. That's true, and we have. And somebody has to bite the bullet, and it can be me, and it's not always me, and I'm really blessed for that. That sometimes people will bite the bullet for me as well, and lock up at 12 or whatever. So really, this is my kind of summary of how to manage these problems. Is wisdom. I prayed for wisdom. I still pray for wisdom. I've asked for the wisdom of Solomon. I'm not quite there yet, and I know that he had a few falls of his own. But I mean, wisdom has to be it. The wisdom of how to deal with really difficult questions, knowledge, research, and knowing when to ask a vicar. I have actually gone on Google when I'm not sure of the organisation that has applied to come here. I've gone and had a look. And some of the things you realise, oh, this is a bit difficult. And it might even mean a phone call to safeguarding. It might mean a phone call to the diocese to say, where are we on this? Is this going to cause us press releases and stuff? Um, and again, I might not be aware of those. So I have had to phone safeguarding and the diocese on some applications for room hires. Sounds crazy, but I have. So, and also knowing when to say no to commercial opportunities. Sometimes it just doesn't fit. And I'll give you an example, and you might think, wow. So we had vets, not army vets, as in veterinarians do, and they were going to rent out the church for a big wedge of cash. But then I found out they wanted to set up bars, there'd be no food, and I was already thinking, I'm not sure. So I asked the rector, and he says, no, I don't think this is for us. And he said we could do it if we had no bars. So they'll go back and say, we can do it if we have no bars. And of course, what's the answer? No, we want bars. So it writes itself. They make the decision as well. But that's an example. So the main thing is integrity and just understanding the importance of mission. Most important here is mission. We have 2 days that are not negotiable. That's our mini Martins. They use one of our rooms. I won't put anyone in on that. And the other day, Saturday, we tend to not rent out unless we've really thoroughly understood what it is that we're gaining, and it sits alongside what we can do. So first and foremost, the way that commerce sits alongside our core reason, it has to be God first, and Christian values first, and then everything else will be added on to that. Our values are for Christ have to be pivotal, our centre, and it works, to put God first. So, but just to close, and I am closing now, just to close, one of the commercial sectors C is paramount, and that is the communication. And that was pretty much what I said earlier, that our congregation, customers, clergy, staff, and volunteers, we can be like islands, like ships in the night, all very separate entities. And so communication, one of the biggest things I realized is ensuring before I say yes to anything, get a feel as to what can the clergy, are they happy with that they might lose that day, or are volunteers able to support this, or are customers able to do what they want to do in the space. And communication to me has been wasn't brilliant to start off with, but I think because of we use Church Suite, and that's been brilliant for us because we can put all of our notes into that, and everyone can access that. Clergy can access it. The customers have an element of that information because you invite them in to their booking if that's what you wish to do. But the most important thing is that we make sure we tell everybody what's going on in the building, so nobody feels out of the loop. So with the varied roles, we can forget to do that, which is basically the church stakeholders. So this is why I was saying about the wardens and the fact that they promote, sell tickets, make tea, help usher the guests, help with marketing, so many other things, but they're part of the wider culture. So communication helps us actually sell the event, run the event, but be part of then the wider culture. So that's really why. So again, just to summarize, some of the things that we do would be music, art, we have prayer, volunteering events, hospitality, and that all is part of our commerce, culture, congregation, compassion. It is all interwoven. Everything that we do is interwoven. So just to summarise, in order that we have St Martin's Pie looks a healthy mix between mission, commission, customer and compassion, we look at the costs, the physical impact of the events, the loss of the space for the congregation, i.e. if it's a conference or the extra work needed, if it's a photo exhibition, how much physical floor will we take up for how much time? Are we going to do that at Easter? No, probably not. Christmas, probably not again. We have our big um we have a big stable put in. It's very large and nothing can go in. So we have to also consider the visitor journey, the congregation visitors and the customer visitors simultaneously arriving for different things. This is an important ending, really, that in my as a parish administrator, I used to see people would come in potentially that were in a real mess. They might have soiled themselves, sorry to be graphic, at the same time as somebody coming in for a meeting. So we soon realised that those two spaces don't work. We need people coming in for the meeting to be different from somebody who needs that one-on-one support for their own, um, you know, what's the word? To keep them not feeling embarrassed for any help they might be asking for. So we've managed to now make everybody feel valued. Customers coming in to hire a meeting room, and also people that are perhaps homeless that need a cup of tea. We can do all of those things now, and we've managed those visitor journeys. One door, although they say don't give people different seats, we don't. We definitely everyone sits where they like, but the actual compassion that we give for everybody is now equal. So this is just like how what our pie looks like. It's just screen grab, so some things have dropped off, but just to give you an idea that we might have a church, you'll see that our choir with no name is one of our biggest customers and also use us the most frequently for probably the least amount of money because they run somewhere where they feed the community. Some of our Cup and Chat folks are also part of the choir with no name. Many of them are just community users, perhaps that just need to visit choir, but some of them actually haven't got food in their belly. And so on Monday, we do our Cup and Chat, but on Thursday night, the choir with no name feeds all of their choir members, and then they all sing in the church. And that is kind of for a nominal, it's a certain amount that has been agreed with the vicar. But again, can you see that they are one of our biggest clients? So again, just first and foremost, our vision, which was written as part of our vision for the church, is passionate in worship, joyful in celebration, overflowing in thankfulness, unceasing in prayer, wholehearted in welcome, generous in hospitality, genuine in friendship, compassionate in support, eager in sharing God's love, confident in proclaiming Jesus, focused on growing disciples, creative in welcoming families, determined in helping the vulnerable, and committed to caring for creation. And so this is just a snapshot, and this really is my last slide of all the things that we have here. Well, say all of the things, some of the things you'll recognise the bell ringing ropes, I'm sure. But top right is our Cup and Chat, our places of welcome, with the volunteers that are involved in that. As you can see, our music ministry in the middle photo with both the younger and the elder members of the choir all together. We have our children's ministry, our Sunday school that happens on our in the lounge. We have our mini Martins that is just actually started, which is only £1 per child, but they do get some a snack. But most importantly, I think to date we had about 12 families now, and it's only just launched. So that's the growth of the church in the bag. Brilliant. And it's not again, I lose the lounge as a hiring space on that day, but it is well, because this is the St. Martin's, wardens of the future that we're nurturing here. So praise God for that.